Good afternoon. I'm Assistant Sheriff Dory Korn at the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I'm here today to provide additional details on an officer-involved shooting that occurred this past Sunday, June 22nd, 2025. Please note we're still early into the investigative process, and as such, the details may change as we get more information and proceed with the investigation. Just some basic information initially. This is the fourth officer-involved shooting of this year, and it is the first non-fatal. In comparison, last year we had 5 officer-involved shootings, all 5 of which were fatal. The location of this officer-involved shooting was at the intersection of Lone Mountain Road and Scott Robinson Boulevard in North Las Vegas. You can see the scene to my left. The officer involved in this incident is Detective Strahenia Pavlovich. He is a 32-year-old male and has been with LVMPD since 2016. Detective Pavlovich was armed with the Glock 19 handgun, equipped with a tactical light and optic. Our investigation revealed he fired 5 rounds. He is assigned to our Tactical Operations Division, Safe Neighborhoods Bureau. There were 3 adult suspects and 1 juvenile suspect involved in this officer-involved shooting. The first adult suspect was identified as Davion Stone. He is 29 years old, 5'7", and weighs 190 pounds. The second adult suspect was identified as Calvin Richards. He is 24 years old, 5'11", and weighs 160 pounds. The third adult suspect was identified as Lazavion Payne. He is 19 years old, 5'9", and weighs 180 pounds. The following are the charges for the 3 adult suspects related to this incident: 2 counts of attempted murder with a deadly weapon, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, and 2 counts of discharging a gun into an occupied vehicle. The fourth suspect was a 14-year-old male juvenile who is 5 feet tall and weighs 95 pounds. The following are his charges related to this incident: 2 counts of attempted murder with deadly weapon, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, 2 counts of discharging a gun into an occupied vehicle, 2 counts of carrying a concealed weapon, and 2 counts of minor possession of a firearm. Several firearms were recovered during this incident. This included a Taurus G3 9mm handgun with 1 round in the chamber and 7 rounds in the magazine. Another Taurus, this time a G3C 9mm handgun with 1 round in the chamber and 2 rounds in the magazine. There was also a Glock 19X 9mm handgun that was recovered. This firearm had 1 round in the chamber and 5 rounds in the magazine. And the fourth firearm was a Springfield XDM 9mm with 1 round in the chamber and 13 rounds in the magazine. It's worth noting that 2 of these firearms were recovered from the juvenile suspect. They actually fell out of his waistband as we took him in custody. I'll go into the details of the officer-involved shooting now. Preceding that, on June 22nd, 2025, at approximately 4:50 in the morning, we received reports of a shooting near the 5100 block of Hickam Avenue. Officers were able to determine that a drive-by shooting had occurred at a nearby residence, and detectives were assigned to assist with the investigation. Later that evening, as detectives were conducting their follow-up investigation, they observed 2 vehicles that were possibly related: a black Nissan sedan and a white Honda sedan. Our detectives began conducting surveillance on these vehicles. During this surveillance operation, the vehicles pulled into a church parking lot, and occupants from each of the vehicles got out, and ultimately some of them switched vehicle that they were in and the location of the car that they were in. One of the vehicles then sped off at a high rate of speed, and the other vehicle also left the area. Our detectives continued their surveillance operation, were ultimately able to relocate the vehicles nearby in another area. At that time, they noticed that the black Nissan sedan was actually following one of our detective vehicles. As detectives were arriving in the area of Lone Mountain and Scott Robinson Boulevard, a black male adult believed to be associated with the suspect vehicles jumped over a nearby residential wall onto Lone Mountain. He then raised a firearm in the direction of our detectives and fired several times, striking one of our LVMPD vehicles. At approximately 10:38 p.m., Detective Pavlovich continued to drive westbound on Lone Mountain. As he approached the black Nissan sedan, he then observed the driver of that vehicle believed to be Davion Stone, extend his arm outside of the window of the vehicle in a manner that was consistent of pointing a firearm towards the detective. And at that time, Detective Pavlovich heard the impacts of gunfire in his vehicle, and ultimately he returned fire towards the suspect vehicle. The Nissan sedan then fled the area at a high rate of speed. You can see photographs to my left of the LVMPD vehicles that were hit by gunfire. And now we'll take a second here to show you some body-worn camera video from Detective Pavlovich. As you can see in this video, the angle is limited because our detective is sitting inside of his vehicle as the officer-involved shooting occurs. A short time later, as additional officers arrived, both suspect vehicles were located at a nearby hospital, and the occupants of those vehicles were taken into custody. A short time later, an additional suspect was taken into custody at a nearby residence, and it's important to point out that there are no outstanding suspects associated with this officer-involved shooting. Calvin Richards, one of the suspects I mentioned earlier, sustained a gunshot wound to his eye and is currently in stable condition at the hospital. Davion Stone, one of the other suspects that was named, sustained a gunshot wound to his forearm and has since been released from the hospital. To conclude the formal part of this briefing, I just want to point out the fact that police work is extremely dangerous, and this incident in particular underscores the danger that our officers, our detectives, all of our personnel face on a daily basis. And the reality is our community is much safer today because the men and women of this police department, and in this case particularly the ones involved in this officer-involved shooting, are going towards danger. They're being aggressive in trying to apprehend violent criminals who are plaguing our community. And ultimately, they were shot at and just inches away from getting hit. So very courageous, and something that I just think it's important to point out. Next time you see an officer out there, just thank them for the work that they do because they're working extremely hard and they're putting their lives on the line to make this community safer, and they're very effective at doing so. With that, we have some time for some questions, but please, I will remind everyone, this is an early start to the investigation. We have a lot of work to do before we know a lot of the information that everyone would like to know. So for that, let's just go ahead and start. Yes? So the question was whether we know how the suspects are related. At this time, we don't know every single relationship, but we do know that those two vehicles and the occupants of both of those vehicles and essentially the other person who jumped the wall are all associated in one way or another, whether it's familial or through other relationships.
Do you have any more details on the drive-by shooting, kind of why it started?
So we're still also investigating that incident. So the question was whether we have more details on the drive-by shooting that led up to this officer-involved shooting. Our team has been working around the clock. We've actually done something called our major case protocol to be able to address any types of increases in violence. One of those incidents was that drive-by shooting that happened. So we're still early into that case. It's too soon to talk about the details there, but we are aggressively detailing with every aspect of this crime that led up to this officer-involved shooting.
Was anybody injured during that drive-by shooting, or was it they just randomly shot at a house?
I don't have all of the details. I'll get back to you once I have more information. Any other questions? All right, with that, I appreciate your time. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.